next video of electrostatics. So in the last lecture we have learnt about the introduction to electrostatic charges and also its properties. Today we'll be moving forward to knowing about what are the different methods of charging a body. Now when you talk about methods of charging a body, there are actually numerous methods. But for your level and according to the standard of NEET, we need to understand three different methods of charging. So let us start one by one. So the first method of charging is charging by friction. So we all know what is called friction, right? So this is one of the simplest method of charging any particular body. Now, what is actually friction? We learned friction in our 11th standard. So friction is something, we learned friction as a force. It was a relative force that was experienced when two bodies rub across each other, like such. So when we rub our hands, we generate heat energy and that is why we feel warm. That is because of friction. Now, in the same way, we can also generate electrostatic charges because of friction. That is when two bodies, let me give you examples. Suppose if I have two bodies, let me assume they are already neutral. So when I say two bodies being neutral, suppose this is body 1 and this is body 2. They are neutral bodies. Both of them. So when the bodies are neutral, both the bodies are neutral, then it will have the same number of protons as well as electrons. Both the bodies will have same number of protons and same number of electrons. Now, when I rub these two bodies together, you need to understand this very fact. Whenever you need to generate electrostatic charge through friction, the bodies need to be a bit different from each other. You cannot take two similar bodies and generate a charge due to friction. It's a bit tricky process. So you need to understand that when I'm talking about two bodies, 1 and 2, even though I have drawn them to be spherical balls, but you need to understand they are not identical. This body might be made up of a different material, this body might be made up of a different material. You can even consider that. So when these two bodies would rub across each other like such, okay, then one of the body would lose electrons, and those electrons lost by any one of the body will get transferred to the next body. That is why, because we learned one of the properties yesterday that charges are transferable. So when the bodies rub across each other, one of the bodies is going to lose some electrons and those electrons are going to get over to the next body. So suppose I say that the electrons move from body 1 to body 2. Okay, the electrons, they move from body 1 to body 2 after rubbing. Okay, this is the process after rubbing. So when the electrons move from body 1 to body 2, what would happen? Now this body, because he has lost some of the electrons, he will be having deficiency of electrons. In that process, he would acquire a net positive charge. And this body who has gained some of the electrons, he would have a net excess. Okay, he would have an excess of negative charges and hence this body would acquire a negative charge. What would be the value of that charge? If somebody asks you what is the value of the positive or the negative charge acquired, that value would be given by Q equals to plus NE for this case, and the same charge value would be given by Q equals to minus NE in this case. What is N here? N is the number of electrons that is getting transferred from one body to the next body due to rubbing. Okay, here it's the same N that goes transferred from body 1 to body 2. So this is how you will get the values of the charges in both the bodies. Now there is a very simple and I would rather say a silly question being asked by some of the students like such. I'm giving you an example. Suppose if I have a glass rod. This is an example that you will find in NCERT books. Suppose if I have a glass rod and if I have a silk cloth. Now, if I rub both of them together, one of the body loses some electrons and gains some positive charge because of friction, and the other body might gain those electrons and acquire a negative charge. Now, students generally ask, sir, how do I directly know which body is going to lose the electrons and which body is going to gain the electrons? Now, that depends on the set of the examples or the set of the things that you're using. It's not fixed. Nobody can guarantee that. The body who has a tendency of losing electrons will lose it first, and hence the other body is gonna acquire it. So it's a property of the body, and questions of that nature will never be asked in your NEET curriculum because that is not a valid nature of question. So you don't need to worry which body is going to lose, which body is going to gain. It's all about their nature. So when you talk about relative examples, you just need to understand that the body which has a tendency of losing electrons will finally gain the positive charge because of that thing, and the other body is going to gain the negative charge. So when you rub these two together upon experimental observations, we have seen that the glass rod eventually loses the electrons and hence it gains a positive charge, and those electrons lost by the glass rod is being acquired by the silk cloth and hence it gains a net negative charge. So this is one of the example that you need to understand for method of friction. Now some of the practical examples based on this fact is when you see, suppose if you comb your hair, if you comb your dry hair, then what do you see? We see that comb is able to attract some bits of paper, right? That is because when you comb your hair, there is a frictional charging method that gets generated, and from comb and hair, one of the thing loses the electrons, the other gains the electron, and hence they acquire virtually positive and negative charge. That is why the comb is being able to attract a piece of papers. Okay, and there is one more example which is pretty much fun. Suppose in birthdays, if you have balloons, okay, if I ask you to paste a balloon in a wall, and if you do not have a rope to do so, what you can do is, if you take the balloon, rub it across your cloth and just stick it in the wall, it will stay stuck. Why does it happen? It's a very practical example of this nature. When you rub the balloon across your cloth, they gain positive and negative charge. Eventually one gains the positive charge, it might be your cloth, it might be the balloon, doesn't matter. But since they gain that charge, once you stick it to the wall which is virtually neutral, okay, because that neutral body would attract any kind of charge being positive or negative, hence the balloon gets stuck there. So this is one of the practical examples for methods of charging, and that method is due to friction, one of the very simplest method. Next we'll be talking about the method by conduction.